The show was not created by a medical professional. It was done by one man and his guests on the show talking about their struggles with mental illness. If you are having thoughts of suicide or in a state of distress, reaching out is the first step towards safety. Call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255 or text TALK to 741-741 to text with a trained crisis counselor from the crisis text line for free 24/7. If you know someone who may be at risk or struggling with depression or anxiety or any mental health issues, please follow everything in the description below to help those that are in need. Life can be so very rough.
Sometimes I get sad. What do you do when you get sad?
This is Something Gives with Josh Ronquist, a show from the mind of someone dealing with mental health issues. One to talk about life, mental health, and music with musicians, fans, and those in the business.
I want to feel good about myself, and I don't know how.
How do you not be sad?
I'm here to spread the word, to talk about our struggles, and what we can do to get better.
I'm responsible for my own happiness. I can't even be responsible for my own breakfast.
While this show cannot cure any mental health issues, sometimes the mind just needs to not feel alone.
There's a lesson here for all of us.
So let's begin the show. Hey everybody, it's Josh Ronquist back here with Something Gives, and you may have noticed that I've been away for quite a while. It's been quite a long time since my last episode, and if you've been keeping up with the Facebook page, or if you've been keeping up with that drummer guy, or my personal page if you're a friend of mine on Facebook, you know there's been a lot of trials and tribulations over the past month and a half. To put it bluntly, my life was in danger, and over the course of the last month and a half, I've done a lot of introspection, and I think I'm finally ready to give my mind some redemption. It's taken 30 3/4 years almost for me to finally get to this point where I'm ready to forgive my past, I'm ready to forgive those who have hurt me in the past, and I want to start my life anew. Now you're probably wondering how I came to this point, and well, it was not easy. It was actually a very rough time that I've dealt with. And for those not in the know, I'm going to start with one of the lowest points of my life so far, and then how it continued to go down and down and down, and then came back up. Now, I'm not entirely sure how long this story is going to be. It could be quite short, actually. It could be quite long. Let's find out. So, February 8th, I woke up about 10:30 in the morning. That's kind of my schedule. I wake up anywhere between 9:30 to noon. When you work from home, when you're your own boss, when you do things the way that you want to do, which not everybody gets to do, obviously, but when you have that schedule, you want to make sure that you do a schedule that's comfortable for you. So I like waking up midday, and I like going to bed later at night. That came from being younger, when I felt like I was bothering people being awake. I felt like every second that I was awake when other people were, I was bothering people. So I changed my schedule in my life to where I didn't deal with the people that I normally dealt with as often. And it's been proven by a lot of people that a lot of people with creative minds like to stay up later at nights. I believe that has something to do with less distractions out there, because depending on your time zone, there's less people awake, there's not as much to watch on TV, there's not as many places to go because a lot of places are shut down at night, blah blah blah. But especially in my formative years, I got a lot of work done at night, and I didn't feel like I was bothering people with that, and it was a great feeling. But anyways, back to February 8th, 2019, I woke up, I opened my eyes, and I thought to myself, this is my last day. I can't be here anymore. Despite all of my efforts, I can't be here anymore. And it broke my heart. I just woke up that day, and I looked at everything around me. I couldn't appreciate anything that I have, everything that I do, the situation that I'm in, everything that I have. I decided it was over. And I actually wrote up my suicide note on Facebook. I drafted it. I've drafted it many times over the years, but I wrote my whole thing down, where I apologized to everybody who cared about me. I wanted people to remember the good things about me, think of my life in a positive way, try to focus more on mental health. Even though I would become another statistic, let my life be a reason for it to change. things like that, and I went deeper into detail with everything, but again, I decided it was my last day. I wrote it up. But I couldn't hit enter. I couldn't hit post. I couldn't do it. Something in my mind told me not to post it. And I still don't know entirely what that is. I think it was a part of my mind that was just telling me my story's not done yet. And I just broke down and cried and cried and cried. Afterwards, with me being as open and honest as I am, the whole point of this show, and hopefully at some point being able to get guests on the show, I'm trying to rebuild my life, so, with the show, all of that will come in time, but I'm a very open and honest person about my life. I'm very open and honest about my mental health struggles, and I posted the fact that I wrote up my suicide note, but I deleted it, and I didn't know what to do with myself. Even though I deleted the suicide note, I still wanted my life to be over. I didn't know if I was at that point anymore where I was going to end my life after all of that, but I didn't want to be here anymore, and I wished death upon me. And there were some people that were trying to talk me out of it. A lot of people deleted me off Facebook for various reasons. Some people just don't care about mental health. Some people just think I'm whining. Some people just think I'm attention seeking. Some people just don't want to see negative posts and they just want to see memes. People have their reasons to delete me off social media, and that's fine. I only want people on my social media that want to be there. Simple as that. But anyways, roughly an hour or so, maybe a little longer, after I posted that, I deleted my suicide note and I didn't know where I was at anymore. And just coercing with people that were either trying to talk me out of things or just checking up to see if I was okay, and various other things, I get a knock on my door. It was the local police. Someone from my Facebook, who I'll leave anonymous, called the cops to check up on me to make sure that I wasn't going to kill myself that day. Thankfully, I was at the point by then where I wasn't attempting to commit suicide. I wanted to die, but I didn't have the strength to kill myself. And the cops stayed with me for about an hour to make sure that I was going to be okay. And I'm really glad they did. And that thing kind of taught me something very important. I mean, obviously it's their job, but it just felt so great that two police officers who didn't know me from a hole in the wall, didn't know me from any other person in the entire world, came up and checked on me, were as calm, cool, and collected as they could possibly be, just checked up on me to make sure I was okay. They had normal conversations with me, they wanted to make sure I was going to be okay, and it just felt so great having human contact with people that I didn't know. So to the anonymous person who did call the cops, whether you're listening to the show, whether you're not, whether I talk to you again, whether or not, thank you for calling the cops, because even though at that point my mind had settled down, I don't know that I wouldn't have tried again. So it really meant a lot to me that you cared enough to make sure that I was going to be okay. So thank you so very much. And after that point, throughout that whole weekend, I felt very numb mentally. I couldn't feel happy to save my life. I couldn't feel sad. I was just lost in this endless void. It felt like nothingness. I mean, I was still around, but I know I wasn't living life. Not just living life to my potential, but it felt like I was just going through the same routine every day. Every day was exactly the same, it felt like to me. And I just did what I can to try to calm down that weekend and be okay. But then things took a dramatic turn for the worse. On Monday, February 11th, I woke up to severe pain. A pain that was all too familiar to me several years before. If you listen to the first episode of the show, you might know where I'm going with this. I woke up with chest pain and gas pain, and it hurt in a way that I hadn't felt in years, and it scared me so bad. I couldn't move. I couldn't get up. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I couldn't eat. I couldn't drink. I couldn't do anything. This violent chest and stomach pain was controlling my life again in a way that I hoped was gone forever. And by the time around 6 p.m. on Monday, I had to have the ambulance come and get me. There was no way I was going to be able to make it through this pain. And I'm so thankful that I decided to have the ambulance come, because I'm pretty sure they saved my life. The ambulance came, they checked up on me, and I was having severe chest and stomach pain, and it was a lot of gastritis and acid reflux and a lot of these other things that the ambulance driver was able to figure out within minutes of talking to me that the hospital that I spent months at several years before could not figure out. And I was able to go to the ER where they checked up on me. It was several hours of hell, but I finally got stabilized, and they actually had to take me to the ICU. Now, you're probably wondering to yourself, well, if it was just gastritis, if it was just acid reflux, couldn't you have just taken a couple Tums or an omeprazole or any of those antacids that you see on TV and you're good to go, right? Well, it actually turned out there was some more issues. The first issue, which I'm pretty sure I talked about in the first show, is I am type 2 diabetic. And with that, over the last couple years, when I thought I had lost my insurance, I stopped going to the doctor, I stopped taking my medications, I took a diabetic pill once in a while, not every day, because I thought I didn't have insurance anymore. So I just took it when I felt like I absolutely needed to, because I only had a few months left of this drug, and I wanted it to last till I could get things under control. Well, as it turns out, I actually should have made things better to begin with, as it turned out that I had Diabetic Ketoacidosis, which, for those not in the know, means that my blood sugar was extremely high. I don't remember the exact amount, but I believe for those that are familiar with blood sugar numbers and stuff, and A1C and stuff like that, it was over 11 points. Which I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but dangerously high, if not fatal, or so I was told. So they kept me in the ICU for several days to make sure that my blood sugar got back into a normal range. They kept pumping me with saline, and they were just checking up on me to make sure that everything was going to be okay. And those ICU doctors were just fantastic. But the problem was, even though my blood sugar was high, I was still dealing with a lot of chest and stomach issues. And with that, I had to have an endoscopy, I had to have an MRI, I had to have all these different things that were just checking up on my chest and stomach, and made things very, very rough for me. Thankfully, with the medication that I have, my chest and stomach stuff has actually gone way down. I feel it occasionally, but it's nothing worse than just a mild heartburn at its worst. And I'm so thankful for that. But we gotta continue on with the story. So, with the diabetic ketoacidosis, like I said, I had to stay in the ICU for several days, and then they transferred me to a regular hospital room with the normal nurses and doctors and stuff like that, just to make sure that my blood sugars would not spike again, and everything was getting back to normal. Now, obviously, on my end now, with me talking in this microphone, you know that I made it home. You know that I'm at least stable enough to talk into this microphone and be able to do this show. But you think that would be kind of the end of the story, where, just spend a couple extra days in the hospital, make sure that I'm doing okay, then send me off. Well, no. There's been something that I've been hiding from pretty much everybody. Doesn't sound like a big thing, but several years ago, I worked at an establishment in retail. I probably shouldn't say which particular Walmart it was, but when I worked there, I was forced to wear these shoes that were not comfortable to my feet. I got pretty big, pretty wide feet, which of course you know what that means. Bigger shoes, bigger socks. But anyways, I had to wear these very uncomfortable shoes to match what we were required to wear at the time. And I got these gigantic calluses on both my feet, right on each big toe, left and right. And over the years, they just calloused over more. They started off as blood blisters, then they calloused over. And a couple years back, my right one popped, as did my left. But my left one was not nearly as bad as my right one. The left one was a lot smaller than the right one. The right one was quite huge. It was probably the size somewhere between a nickel and a quarter in size. And it left a big hole in my toe. The left one partially had that as well, but it was small enough to be able to heal up on its own. My right one, not so much. And with that, I thought, hey, if I just keep that wrapped up, if I just put antibiotics with it, if I just keep switching out the wraps, if I just make sure not to put too much pressure on it, I'll be okay. And I shouldn't have done that. Should not have done that at all. all. I should have went into the doctor to have it looked at. It might have changed things for me. What I decided to do was to keep it off. I didn't go to the doctor. I was afraid I didn't have insurance anymore. I was scared for my life, but scared to go into the doctor because I thought things were gonna end up violently bad for me if I went. And as long as I still had my leg, everything would be okay. Because that's one thing with diabetes, that unless you have it or know someone that has it, or if you deal in the medical field, diabetes can start affecting you in many different ways. For some people, it takes away your eyesight. For some people, you can't perform sexually anymore. For a lot of people, your nerves start to die, and it starts with your toes, and it goes all the way through your body. For me, well, that's kind of what happened. I got what is called neuropathy, which thankfully I can still feel in my toes and my feet, but not 100%. Some things I can't feel, some things I can. And despite how much blood that was constantly going through my toe, I was thinking, hey, as long as I got circulation that's going through my toe, everything's fine. I gotta switch out my bandages and wraps and all these things all the time, make sure I put on antibiotic, do all these things, but everything should be fine because I'm still getting circulation to my toes. Turns out that was not the case. Circle back to what was supposed to be one of the last days being in the hospital when one of the nurses wanted to switch out my socks, which really scared me. I did not want that to happen. And when they finally saw my big right toe, they immediately called for the doctor and they had to perform some tests. And as it turned out, I did have an infection in my right toe. And there was two things I could have done. Well, actually three. One, I could have done what I was doing all this time and done nothing, meaning that it could have very easily went through my entire body and eventually killed me. And if it wasn't for me going to the hospital, that's probably what would have happened. The second thing was they could have done more tests to see where everything is and lay off what probably would have been the inevitable. And number three was to cut out the infection. Now you're probably wondering what I mean by that, and if it's not clear by now, they had to cut off part of my toe. So I am technically having 19 and 3/4 to 19 and a half digits. I knew it was going to be something I probably would have had to deal with this whole time when I constantly kept looking at my foot and changing out the wraps, putting on antibiotics, all of these things. I knew that if I went to the doctor at some point, I was so scared I was going to lose my whole toe, or several toes, or part of my foot, or my whole foot, or part of my leg, if not my whole leg. And thankfully, I went into the doctor when I did, well, the hospital when I did, and had pediatrics look at it, gave me those choices, and we went in with an option between 1 and 2. That option was to go into surgery, have them look at the toe, see if it was possible at all to just cut out the infected parts of the tissue and all of that stuff, and then close it back up and see if there was a way to save everything. If there couldn't have been, then to cut off the part that was infected. And that's what we did in the long run. I lost the upper part of my big toe from basically the bottom of the nail up. So I no longer, it's cut off right where the toenail would start. And that was the Monday after I was admitted into the hospital. So without looking at the calendar, I believe that was February 18th. Actually, yes, it was, because that comes into later in the story. So with that, there's probably some questions that come up there like, am I ever going to be able to walk normal again? Am I going to have to use a walker or a wheelchair? Is this going to continue? All those different things. Well, one thing I can say is they put me on a ton of antibiotics to make sure that everything was okay. And with the amputation, everything pretty much resided on the top part of my big toe. So there's no more infection throughout my body, which is a huge plus, meaning that, at least for the time being, nothing else needs to be amputated as long as nothing else goes wrong. That part comes to me with diabetes. I need to make sure that I continue to keep making sure that my blood sugars are in check, take my medications, do all these things to make sure that I'm going to be okay. Because even though I got some neuropathy where I lost feeling in my feet, that I'm gonna be okay so it doesn't keep moving up north and take away more of my body. Now with that, I was actually in the hospital for a bit longer than that. The whole stay was 13 days, and it just took the life out of me. It really did. I was at my lowest of lows in the hospital, being in there by myself so often, not always having someone to talk to, Just a lot of dark things going on, and it really sucked. Anyone that's ever been in the hospital for any amount of time, you know this. Thankfully, I had my amazing girlfriend with me every single day, and many nights she actually slept over. She either slept in a big recliner or an uncomfortable chair, depending on which hospital room I was in. 3 in total, actually. The last few days I was moved up into what they called the suite, which was the biggest rooms in the hospital for patients, which was actually mighty nice. But it was amazing to have her there. She took care of me as much as she could. I had some amazing people show up, one of which I'm going to say for near the end of this whole story. I had some great friends show up. It was just a great feeling. There was people around here that did care, and it truly meant a lot. And of course, there was many people on Facebook that were checking up on me constantly, just making sure that I was okay. And you people as well, whether you're listening or not, you helped me keep going, and it meant the absolute world to me. But again, getting back into the toe situation, many of those questions, yes, I was told I will be able to walk normal again. I was told that I didn't need any further surgery or anything else going on, that once the infection's gone, out of my system, once the antibiotics are cleared up, I should be good to go. And of course, once the stitches are out and all that stuff. But there is, of course, some physical therapy that came with that. Some days I had to deal with that, and I was given a few choices of what to use. A wheelchair, some crutches, and the options that I went with, first a walker, which I was using around my apartment, just for tiny steps, stuff like that. If I had to go to the bathroom, if I had to leave for an appointment, just being able to move towards the door, things like that. And the main thing that I've been using, a knee scooter, which I had the hardest time learning in the hospital, but it became one of my favorite things to use, and I kind of wish I could keep it because it is fun scooting around on that thing. You put your knee down on a cushion, you hold on to the handlebars just like a bike or a razor scooter, and you just cart yourself along. And with where I am, there's some hills and valleys and stuff like that, and it felt pretty fun actually when you're going up and down stuff. It felt like I was on a razor or skateboard or any of that stuff. It felt really fun, actually. But, of course, a lot of mental stuff was going on with this as well. This feeling like a failure, feeling like my life was over, feeling like my life will never be better. It'll never be back to where it was before physically. All these different things that were going through my mind. And one thing that did help too much in the hospital was I was a bit overprescribed on antidepressants. I've been off antidepressants prior to being in the hospital for about 1.5 2 years. I cut myself off of them because they just made me feel way too numb. I wasn't able to be happy. I wasn't able to be sad. Just like that weekend after writing out my suicide letter, after the cops came, the realization of everything, I just felt way too numb. And even though I get sad, I still want to be able to feel happy when I can feel happy. So I cut myself off. But when I was in the hospital, when they found out about my mental state and everything, they decided to give me the maximum amount of antidepressants. Won't say the name of the drug, but they gave me the maximum dose. And even now, I have the hardest time crying. I have the hardest time feeling real joy. And I think it's just my mind getting used to the antidepressants. Now, getting back into a little bit later when I got out of the hospital, when I was looking at these things when it comes to my mental state, I told the doctor about this, and they actually switched me from the maximum dose of this one drug to half the dosage of a different one. And that seems to have evened me out quite well, actually. I feel so much better now, and it feels good. But anyways, getting back to what was going on with the hospital, with the mental states in there, even though I was on heavy doses of antidepressants, I just felt completely lost in there. And I just wanted to get out. I wanted to be able to live my life. I did not want to die in the hospital. But I'm so thankful that I stayed all 13 days that I did, because they wanted to make sure that I was going to be okay. When I was dealing with all these health issues several years ago, almost 6 years ago now, the hospital kept me in for a week, then they kicked me out no matter how bad or good I was doing. Because at the time I had no insurance, and that's a whole other discussion for a different time. But you're probably wondering, well, if you didn't go to the doctor in the last couple of years and you didn't want to check yourself out, why are you talking about going to the hospital again even though you didn't have insurance? Well, it actually turns out when I got to the ER, I was still covered by my previous insurance. The score. Considering how long I was in the hospital, how much all of that cost, all the specialty doctors, all the medication, I would have to declare bankruptcy several times to be okay. Obviously, that's a joke, but I would have had to declare bankruptcy. There would have been no way I could pay off this at all. But anyways, with that, I'm actually back on a better track. I have medications now. I have a primary doctor. I have a podiatrist that's checking on my foot. Actually, the one that cut off my big toe. Occasionally, I've been going back the last few weeks to get my foot rewrapped to make sure everything's okay. Until yesterday, where I went into the doctor just thinking it was going to be another day where just wrapping the foot, gonna have to come back in a week and a half again. Maybe then everything will be okay and maybe I can learn to start walking again. I was told, hey, let's get those stitches out so you can start walking again. And that just brightened up my entire life. I could not have felt better. I could not believe it. I actually was getting my stitches out and I could walk again. Now, the biggest reason why I could not walk was because of the stitches. Didn't want them to pop out, didn't want the healing to stop, didn't want anything to happen. Just wanted everything to be okay. Because when the stitches pop, I would have to get stitches again, and that might lead to other issues, but we're okay. Everything's okay. And took the stitches out, barely felt it, half because it didn't hurt that much, half neuropathy, but was able to get them out relatively easy. Put some bandages on just in case there was any additional blood, and I've been able to walk. I took the knee scooter out of the clinic to get to the car, but ever since then, I've been walking. Been able to walk around my apartment, walk from the parking garage to my apartment, and it just felt amazing. Wore me out. Completely wore me out because I had not walked in 5 weeks. And yesterday was a month and a day after I was admitted to the hospital. 5 weeks and a day. And I was just so thankful to be able, after that amount of time, to be able to get back on that road to recovery and be able to be myself again. Now, you're probably wondering what I was doing in that time in between the hospital and recording this. Well, I was told after the surgery, which I was doing for long amounts of time, both in the hospital and here, to keep my leg elevated as much as possible to help the healing process. So another thing was I was not able to put any pressure on my foot. I was not allowed to step on it. I was not allowed to walk to the bathroom. I was not allowed to do any of these things. So I had to keep my foot up at one point 23 hours of the day while I recovered. And since I was not able to put any pressure on my foot, I wasn't actually able to sleep on my own bed. I had to sleep on my couch, which thankfully I have an amazing couch that is so comfortable and I'm able to fall asleep great on. But it's not my bed, and I miss that. So I was laid up on my couch basically any time that I wasn't going to an appointment or going to the bathroom. And you're probably wondering to yourself, if you're not, you are now, and we're talking about it, how I was able to go to the bathroom if I couldn't even get into my own bed. Well, I was thankful enough to be able to have something referred to as a commode. Not a Komodo like a Komodo dragon, not one of those Japanese ropes. A commode, which is what they use in hospitals and for the elderly and people going through surgery, but it's basically a high-rise toilet made of metal and mainly plastic where you do your business, and there's a little shelf on the bottom. You can dump it out into a toilet and of course wash it out and then put it back in, rinse and repeat. So again, to my amazing girlfriend for having to put up with my crap in more ways than one, you are the true hero of this story, especially for several weeks having to put up with my crap. So that's what I've been doing the last several weeks. I've been going to appointments, getting my foot checked on, seeing a primary doctor, changing medications as needed, getting my blood sugar under control, which it finally is. So much so, I actually checked my blood sugar before recording the show, and it's at a 96, which if you know anything about blood sugar, the perfect range is between 90 and 120. So I'm good. And as long as I keep up with my medications, as long as I keep going to see the doctor, as long as I keep doing these things, I'm gonna be alright. Now, one thing I want to mention towards this before I get into more of the introspection of all this is I did have one particular visitor at the hospital that I never would have thought would enter my life, and that was my oldest sister. several weeks before all this happened, about months even going back into 2018, we coerced a little bit. Not too often, an occasional hi. I said happy birthday to her. Those things that always happen when you're an adult, when you said, hey, we should get together sometime, and it's like, yeah, we should, and then nothing really comes of it. But when I was in the hospital, she showed up. She wanted to check up on me, and I just thought that was amazing. She actually bought me a pair of Bluetooth headphones to use with my phone so I could listen to music if I wanted to while I was in bed in the hospital, and she just wanted to check up on me and make sure that was going to be okay. And that was just the greatest thing. That was just incredible of her to do that. We talked, and we're gonna be putting our bygones be bygones. We've actually texted a couple times since then, and it's been great. I mean, the fact that my nieces, that my oldest sister has, are gonna be 19 and 17 this year just completely blows my mind. First of all, I feel way too old. Even though I'm 30, I feel way too old. But just knowing that my oldest niece has graduated, and my second oldest niece will be graduating next year, I can't believe it. It's just utterly insane to me. But the biggest thing of all is I do have part of my family back. Even if it's in a small way, even if it's just checking up on each other occasionally, I have my sister back. And it means the world to me. I constantly feel like my family abandoned me many, many years ago, and they never understood what they did wrong. But one person in my family wanted to make things right, and I'm very, very thankful she did. And that brings things back to why I'm calling this particular episode Introspection, because that was the biggest thing I did while I was in the hospital. Several years ago, when I was dealing with my first battle with all of this, when I was originally in the hospital, I wanted to die every single day, every single moment. I did not want to be alive anymore. The pain would not go away because I didn't have insurance. The doctors and nurses did not care. They didn't try as hard. That's so obvious now, considering the hospital I was at now. And they thought I was faking all of these issues that I had. They thought it was all in my mind, and that just made me want to end it all. This time around, I had amazing doctors, some stern, some very compassionate. I had amazing nurses, with the exception of one particular nurse and two particular assistant nurses, which I'm not going to get into detail. Let's just say that they were not good, but the rest were amazing. And I was in a very comfortable position for the most part. Obviously, when you're in the hospital, you're not going to get sleep. You might get a couple hours here and there, but you're constantly getting checked on. You know, they're checking your heart, they're checking your lungs. When you're diabetic, they're constantly doing blood sugar tests. You're getting blood drawn at all hours for the longest time, which I mentioned at the beginning of the show for a reason. When my normal schedule was waking up anywhere between, let's just say 10 to noon, and then going to bed somewhere between 2 to 4 in the morning. I was waking up at anywhere from 4 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. get blood drawn, and I was constantly getting pressured to eat breakfast in the morning and do all these things that my body and mind was just not able to recuperate with that. Those just weren't my hours, and it took a long time to adjust, especially when you're not getting sleep in the hospital. That was messing with my mind. But again, with everything that was going on, be it the medications, be it the more comfortable environment, be it my loving girlfriend, be it everyone that showed up to see me, be it the love and care from everyone on my social media, I was in a way better state of mind. I didn't want to die constantly. I wanted to be here. I wanted to fight. I wanted to be the best I possibly could be. And especially after I lost part of my toe, I wanted to use a metaphor or a simile, or my apologies, I'm bad with English terms right now, but an analogy. Let's just call it an analogy. I want to look at the top of my right toe as all of the bad things that I've dealt with in the past 30 and a half years of my life. Every bad thing that either I was responsible for, that I was just a victim of circumstance, terrible family, terrible environment, horrible people that I dealt with in my life, the mental problems that came with all of this. I want to look at all of those issues as the top of my right toe. The reason I'm doing that is because the top of my right toe is gone. So can all of these issues that I dealt with in the past. Mental, physical, traumatic, emotional, stress-filled, family, terrible friends, terrible people I've dealt with, bad situations, all of these things that have happened in my life are gone, just like the top of my right toe. And because of that, it's no longer with me. The top of my big right toe so is no longer with me. So can all of these terrible things that I dealt with. It's in the past. It's gone. I'll never see those again. Some things might come up again, obviously, but so many of those things are in the past, never to be seen again. Just like the top of my big right toe. And because of that, it didn't kill me. I'm still here. I recovered, and I can move forward. And that's exactly what I want to do. I want to be a better person. I want to be better physically, mentally, emotionally. What I do with Something Gives, what I do with that drummer guy, my presence on social media, my presence in real life, everything. I want to be a better person, and I know I can be now that my past pain is gone. And that does it this episode of Something Gives. Thank you so very much for tuning in. This was a hard episode for me to do, but it felt so good to get my story of the last 5 weeks and now 2 days of my life, from the hospital to now, and of course the weekend before going into the hospital. And I hope that you can apply it to your life somehow. Obviously, we all go through our own struggles, both mentally, physically, emotionally, stress, all of these things. If you can take anything away from what I'm saying, just look at that last message. So many events that happened in the past are in the past. They're gone. They only live on for as long as you remember them. But you're still here. You can still try. You can still move forward. Not saying you don't need help. I needed help, be it more physically than I realized. But it gave me a new, redeeming, self-fulfilling, and hopefully rewarding feeling that knowing that the past and all these things that brought me pain are gone, I can move forward. And hopefully, if you need it, it will for you too. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to check out Something Gives on Facebook at Something Gives Podcast. If you want to check out the music side of what I do, that should hopefully be coming back in April with that drummer guy. Make sure to keep up with thatdrummerguy.com for all of your drummer guy needs. And until next time, this is Josh Runquist saying, see ya. This has been Something Gives with Josh Runquist. Tune in next time where we continue the discussion of mental health, music, and life in general. Make sure to check out all your favorite social media sites to follow what I do as Josh Runquist and that drummer guy. And until next time, just remember,
it's always worth it. Hang in there, stay positive. It's worth the fight.
this show was not created by a medical professional. It was done by one man and his guests on the show talking about their struggles with mental illness. If you are having thoughts of suicide or in a state of distress, reaching out is the first step towards safety. Call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255 or text TALK to 741-741 to text with a trained crisis counselor from the crisis text line for free 24/7. If you know someone who may be at risk or struggling with depression or anxiety or any mental health issues, please follow everything in the description below to help those that are in need.